So Hannah, what is a sustainability innovation that you are most excited about at the moment?
So my sport is sailing. I love the ocean, I love being on the ocean, and obviously when we go out sailing for safety reasons, we often have support boats with us that traditionally are run by petrol engines, and so putting a lot of bad things into the ocean. So I'm pretty excited in my role with SailGP, Global Sports Sailing League, that we are really focusing in on the transition from petrol engines on the watercraft to electric or hydrogen or whatever that new technology is going to be that works with water, because that's obviously a huge challenge, what's going to work with water. So yeah, we're really pushing this forward and I'm excited to see the transition.
And what do you see as the biggest challenge in building a more sustainable future?
Well, I think I'll take a quote from the legend that is Sir David Attenborough, who I believe said that we now have all the solutions and ideas and most of the technologies that we need to solve the climate crisis. The challenge is communicating that effectively around the world. So communication, I think, and getting the awareness and the ideas to the right place and implemented is going to be the biggest challenge.
I love that. And if you had $100 billion US, what would you spend it on in order to advance some of these global progresses and why?
Ooh, I think three things. I think what the Earthshot Prize is doing is awesome to incentivise innovation and ideas and to spread the awareness and the communication like I spoke about. So I'd have a prize pot for ideas. I would spend a lot of it on rewilding, giving nature a chance to thrive, because that's a huge part of the solution. And then I'd spend the rest on renewable energy and pushing that.
Great. So now I want to ask you a few things about what it is that you're actually working on and your industry a little bit more specifically. So maybe just initially, do you want to tell us about how you're working to advance sustainability within sports, within sailing, and sort of your efforts on that front?
Yeah, so I'm an Olympic sailor initially, did 3 Olympic Games, and it was at the Rio 2016 Olympics in the build-up to that where we spent a lot of time sailing there that I saw sort of how bad the plastic pollution crisis was getting. And until that, I'd seen plastic in the water and I'd witnessed it, but I hadn't had anything quite so vivid. And so for me, that was a turning point of this needs to change, I need to do something about it. So I launched my own initiative, the Big Plastic Hedge, which is all about eradicating single-use plastic in sports. And then my journey, I guess, progressed into bigger climate change problems or challenges such as carbon and different areas, and I started educating myself on those. And after the Tokyo Olympics, when I retired from Olympic sailing, I launched an organisation called Athletes of the World with a fellow athlete, Melissa Wilson, which is all around educating athletes on the climate crisis so that they can be advocates, they can speak about it confidently, they can work with their sponsors, because I believe the reach and the power of sport and athletes is massive. So that's kind of my background, and then after the Olympics I jumped into SailGP, which is fairly new. We're in season 3, global sports property, and they had huge ambitions from the start to be leaders in sustainability and purpose globally in sport. So from the outset they've embedded sustainability. So for me it was like the perfect thing to kind of jump. I could carry on sailing and I could do a lot of sustainability work as well. So from everything to do with like how they run SailGP through to the teams and what the teams are individually doing when it comes to purpose and sustainability, it's kind of embedded everywhere. So it's a pretty exciting place to be.
Yeah, I mean, it bridges your two passions, I guess.
Yeah.
And I know that you've spoken a little bit about how competition in this context can also be kind of supportive of encouraging more sustainable outcomes. Do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about how that might accelerate progress in achieving your goals?
Yeah, definitely. I guess when I look at SailGP and what they've done, so for season 2, so that was 18 months ago, they initiated something called the Impact League, which is essentially pitting the teams against teams, but in sustainability. So each team is obviously competing on the water to try and win, but we're also competing off the water in what's called a podium for the planet. And the premise is that each event, each team's audited pretty heavily externally about how they do everything. So it's things like how you get to the event, how you use your voice to spread the message of what you're doing, which I think is really, really critical. Innovations to make the boats more sustainable, all these different areas, there's 10 different areas. And then you win points, and then you win prize money for your chosen charity. And I think what's been really cool about it is initially when they introduced it, teams were kind of like, well, it's a huge distraction, we're just trying to win. Not that bought in, to now, 18 months in, we're almost at the end of season 2, and it's fiercely competitive. And some of the collaborations between teams, because you're rewarded for that, and innovations and ideas that have been brought on have massively changed how operations are run. So I look at an example from our team, our partnership with our partner Low Carbon. We wanted to take our entire site off-grid. So wherever our base was set up, we could take it off-grid. So we've worked with them, and in San Francisco at the next event, we're going to be doing a test bed for trying to do this with a variety of solar panels and wind turbines. And if we can make this successful and prove the concept, then all the other teams are going to adopt it as well. So I guess the impact is kind of scalable, and then hopefully other sports and other industries where it's applicable will also be able to buy it. So yeah, it's quite a cool initiative that I love.
No, I mean, it sounds great, and I think it is almost kind of reflective of some of broader efforts to, I guess, incorporate certain things. Initially there might be hesitance, but then once it becomes mainstream, once it becomes embedded, it becomes something that people fully embrace, right?
Exactly, and I think also it's, people initially don't like change and don't like new things necessarily, but once you adopt something that's bigger than yourself, it's about much more than just the individual and the competition. It's about purpose and actually making a difference to whatever it is you can influence. And people get so much back from that, and I think that's a really key message as well. It's not always about money and numbers, it's about actually people and what you're giving and what you're getting back from it as well.
No, and there's one more thing I also want to pick up on, which is, you mentioned earlier the impact that could generate, and I know that typically when people talk about impact in the sustainability space, it's all about, the numbers, your emission reduction, things that you can measure. How have you found navigating, working to create impact in areas that maybe are a little bit harder to manage or measure?
Yeah, it's a really good topic, I think, that needs a lot of thought and discussion, because we have times where something that we're trying to do isn't necessarily traditionally measurable in terms of direct impact. So whether it's going to visit a school, for example, and giving a school talk and talking about all the things we're doing and the ocean and inspiring them, I guess, to go and be change makers themselves. I don't know what they're going to go and do or what behaviour it might change, or you can't measure that, but it's still a hugely positive thing that we've done, and we know that. But sometimes commercially, I guess, when things are commercially driven and there's not this clear fact about how successful something's been, it gets turned down because it's like, well, we can't measure that. And it's like, yeah, but we've still done some amazing things, and you can tell stories about it, and you can show videos about it, and that. So yeah, I think we really need to be conscious of not just having the commercial head on things, because it's not that clear. Impact doesn't always have to be measured.
Great, and I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the sessions.